Iteration. In this lesson you are going to learn what iteration is, how it is used in programs and how to program on the Microbit with iteration. In this lesson you will define the term iteration, identify the code for using iteration on a Microbit, and demonstrate using iteration within an algorithm. We're going to start by defining the term iteration. The term iteration simply means the repetition of instructions. We might also call this a loop. There are two types of iteration we're going to look at. The first one is where we might repeat a set of instructions so many times. The other type is where we repeat while there is a condition that is true. Now, a condition is a statement that is evaluated true or false. Now, an example of how this might look on the Microbit is as follows. So first of all, for repeating so many times, you can see we've got a piece of code where at the start we might iterate 4 times, and those are the instructions that we are repeating 4 times. So it'll go happy, sad with a 1 second pause, happy, sad, 1 second pause, and it will do that 4 times. The code will then end. For the second code, we're going to iterate while the condition button A being pressed is true. So if we press button A, we will have a happy face. If not, then the screen will be clear. Now, in this particular piece of code, we've used a forever block in order to keep the code running all the time. So it will constantly be looking to see whether button A is being pressed. While it isn't being pressed, it will keep the screen clear, but if it detects button A being pressed, it will show the icon happy face. This code will not stop running. We're now going to identify the code for using iteration on a Microbit. We're going to start by seeing on the menu how we select iteration. Now we do this by selecting loops. When selecting loops, the options we will need for repeating and while will both come up. Starting with looking at the repeating code, you can see that we can either use that inside the onStart block, which means it will work straight away as soon as you start the code. That code, the instructions, will repeat, in this case, 10 times. The other way we can do it is by having a trigger, in this case an input of button A being pressed, and that will start the iteration. In both cases, we can choose the number of times it repeats by changing the number. We can change things like what's shown, and obviously by putting a pause in there, you will see the gap between each repeat. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see that gap. When we look at the while, there's again several ways in which we can use a while statement and what we can use with it. The first one we can look at is how we can use an input. Now, looking at the shape that a while loop has attached to it, you can see we have a hexagon. So we can start with by putting any of the hexagon-shaped inputs inside the while loop. In the example, I've used button A being pressed. Obviously, I could change that to button B as well, but you can see from the options, we have the pin being pressed, we have shake being activated. We can also use a comparison. Now you'll find comparison inside the logic menu. Now a comparison is used to check an input or the value of a variable against a value that you assign to it. Now the way in which we do this is by either using an equals to check whether it is equal to something, and this first of all one is numbers. We may check that it's greater than a value or less than a value, and we can also check that it's equal to a particular text. In the two pieces of code I've used as an example, you can see that in the first one, both of them have been put inside forever loops to start with, and then we've got a while loop with a compass heading is equal to 90 degrees, and then we've got an icon that's shown when it is, and we've got a variable that we're looking for to be greater than 5 for a happy face to be shown. Obviously, in this case, you would have to create the variable first before you can use it to do a comparison. You are now going to demonstrate using iteration within an algorithm. Now, each of these tasks below are going to be completed using the MakeCode editor, which you will find at the link shown or by clicking on the link through ClassCharts. With these tasks, you must start at the developing level and work your way up to mastered, completing as many of the tasks as you can on the way. Starting with the developing, you first of all need to copy the piece of code shown onto MakeCode. Run the code on the emulator and have a look at what it shows. Once you've done that, you need to make the following changes to the code. You need to change it so that it repeats 20 times, that shows different icons, and finally that it has different length of pause. Once you've done this, you need to take a screenshot or a photo of your new code and upload it to ClassCharts. For secure level, again, there's a piece of code you need to copy. Copy this onto MakeCode, check what it does, and then add a new block of code to change the count by -1 while button B is pressed. Your hint for this is it will look quite similar to the forever piece of code you've got already shown, but with the changes stated. Again, when you've completed that task, take a screenshot or photo of your code and upload it to ClassCharts. Your last task is mastered, and you need to start by creating a variable called score. You assign a value of 0 to score, and then you need to create code where while button A is being pressed, you change the score by 1 and display the score. And the second piece of code where while score is less than 10, you must display play on. And once the score has reached 10, you must display you win. When you have completed this task, again, take a screenshot or photo of your code and upload it to ClassCharts. To get a bit of help with this piece of code, it might be worth having a look back at the previous slide. So the last thing you need to complete is your exit quiz. You will find a link to this quiz through ClassCharts. Once you have completed it, you must take a screenshot or a photo of your score for uploading to ClassCharts. So in conclusion, in order to complete this lesson, you need to take screenshots or photos of each level of task you have completed, whether it's developing, secure or mastered, and upload to ClassCharts and take a screenshot of your exit quiz. If you only upload a picture of your exit quiz, your work will not be changed to submitted. It will be left as not submitted. You must upload at least the developing level of the task in order to complete this work.